Alrighty, I believe we are live. I'm just gonna wait a few moments for our friends to get here. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Funke Afolabi Brown. I'm the founder of Restful Sleep MD, and I help high achieving women like you prioritize sleep. And so we are having an amazing session tonight, and you will see over the course of this talk, this candid conversation, why I think this is pretty incredible. I'm having my friend Dr. Nerissa Bauer join. ADHD and routines. And so I think she should be connecting very soon. There we go. Hi, my friend. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to be here.
Listen, I'm loving that hat. That's all I gotta say. It's so good to have you. And I was just telling our friends what an amazing treat they're in for, because we're going to be talking about something that's really important. I hold very near and dear to my heart, because I deal with this with my patients every day pretty much, and I know you live and breathe ADHD as someone who's really experienced it firsthand. And so I'm not going to steal your thunder at all. What I'm going to have you do is, introduce yourself to all our awesome friends, and then we'll jump right in.
Yes, yes. Hi, Tasha. Hello. So I'm Nerissa Bauer. I am a behavioral pediatrician who takes care of kids who think and learn differently. So what that means is I'm a pediatrician by training, but I specialize in ADHD, anxiety, depression, and parenting problems. And I myself also have ADHD. I was just diagnosed last year, actually this time last year, at 47. So it is kind of, the full circle here. And it's so important. I'm so glad we're talking about this, not just from the standpoint of how, as parents of children with ADHD, to support their sleep, but my own struggles, as you know,
Yeah.
with getting better sleep. It is hard, but we have to prioritize it because it's one of those things that is a biologic need. But in order to set our brains up for success, those of us with ADHD, we need to do these self-care strategies to help promote our brain and to be optimal with day to day. So
listen, I'm going to just stop you right there.
Yes.
Because you said something that was so profound. Literally diagnosed at 47. So I'm sure some people are like, wait, what? I thought that was something that we see in kids. And now we're realizing, like, a lot of us, a lot of moms, a lot of people are, they go through life undiagnosed and are struggling with getting things done. So maybe before we even go into what we delve into it, like, tell me a little bit, like, how has that one changed you? What was that experience like for you? And also for someone, maybe it's a two-part series, also for someone who may have kids that they're like, I wonder if this kid has ADHD. Like, what should they look out for? And how do you navigate the system to get that diagnosis and move on from there?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with that piece first and then circle back to the parents. So for ADHD, it is a brain-based condition. Common symptoms include hyperactivity or impulsivity, as well as inattention. So things like kids are daydreaming, forgetful, disorganized, does homework but doesn't follow through and submit it, or maybe forgets what they need to bring home to do homework and all of that. It doesn't mean that they're not smart and they're not capable. It's just that we know that ADHD is a problem or a challenge of executive functioning, which originates here in your frontal lobes, which is developing all the way until kids are 25. So here's my brain model here.
Love it, love it.
And what the frontal lobe is responsible for are planning, prioritization, organization, time management, attention regulation, sustaining attention, goal-directed behavior, emotion regulation, and metacognition, which is basically the ability of oneself to step back, reflect, and be able to understand kind of the consequences of their actions and be able to pivot and monitor that. So it's much more than a behavioral diagnosis.
Mm,
That's really what that all is
mm,
about. It is a
mm,
brain-based condition. And that's why sleep is so important.
mm,
I teach kids as soon as we go over the diagnosis so that they understand what it is. So they don't have to be afraid of what ADHD is or think something's wrong with them.
mm,
It's kind of like I tell kids, it's kind of like, if you have people or know people who need glasses, it's kind of like trying to help their eyes see better, right?
yeah,
And here, with ADHD, it's something to do with your brain, but it doesn't mean you're not smart. It's just that we need to help your brain be able to focus better. So it's kind of
mm,
like trying to figure out, instead of glasses for your brain, trying to figure out what your brain needs. And one of
mm,
those things it needs is sleep, proper
mm,
sleep.
mm,
Now, so those are the kind of the signs to look out for, but oftentimes it's not uncommon because ADHD is highly heritable
mm,
that many parents, as they come to learn more about what ADHD is for their
mm,
child, they reflect and they're like, oh, I was kind of like that too, or I am like that. I struggle with that.
mm,
And my journey was not unlike that. I mean, my son has had attentional issues for a long time. He's now in high school. And it wasn't really until I left my former job in academia where I realized how much I thrived in structure and
mm,
routine.
mm.
And when I left and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm going to be my own boss. Well, you know, own boss, I just realized that that sounded great, but in actuality, I wasn't paying bills on time. I wasn't,
Mm,
because I didn't have a structure or routine that I
mm,
was able to put in place for myself. I was sort of just
mm,
kind of going with the flow and this is what I want to do. And, so it just got to the point where it was untenable because
mm,
I was like dropping the ball on so many
mm,
things. Um, and so again, I went through formal testing, and finally, when I got the diagnosis, it was like something clicked. It was like,
mm.
oh, this totally makes sense. This explains why
Wow.
I'm feeling so overwhelmed
Mm,
and all of this, all of these different things that I was having a hard time with managing all of those different executive
yeah,
function tasks.
yeah, yeah. No, there's just so many places to take this. But one
Yes.
of the things you said that I think really stood out to me, I mean, everything you said is standing out right now because you're like such an incredible woman. That's why I made you my friend at all costs. But the fact that you started to see this when you kind of left that sort of more structured environment, right?
Yeah.
Of course, we want to be, especially as women, we want to be our own bosses. We want to be able to do whatever or pursue our dreams. It just turns out you kind of started to find yourself kind of floating around. Oh, I could do this, I could do that. Meanwhile, when you had that kind of, like you said, structure and routine, it was easier for you to get things done. It was easier for you to achieve tasks,
Yes.
executive function, and all those things you said started to play a role. And now I'm kind of bringing that even back to, our kids with ADHD, where fine, it may not be that they need to pay bills or whatever, but they are needing to make these decisions. They are needing to submit homework, get things done. They are needing to have good emotional self-regulation, good social skills, right? They do need those skills. But one of the things you said was the structure and the routine living kind of started to open up some things. And I just want you to share a little bit about why that is so important. Why does routine or having a structure of some sort in place, why can that make kids and families with ADHD thrive? Because I know that's all you're about. So,
Yes.
yeah, you know,
Yes, yes. So whether or not a child has ADHD, we know that children
yeah,
and people in general, we like to kind of know and follow a schedule, I mean, it
yeah,
just helps us sort of have a structure to the day. I mean, it doesn't have to be planned down to the minute. And I know that in the past when I've talked to families about schedules and routines,
mm,
I often try to help families know that it doesn't have to be really rigid, but it's just being able to have your mind think about, okay, every night, this is kind of the steps that I do to get ready for bed, right?
Mm,
And even though, two things, even though, it's something that, like getting ready for bed, let's say,
mm,
is something that you do every day, and parents are like, well, he should know what they need to do. He's 10 years
mm,
old. Like, why is this a problem?
mm,
Well, because first of all, we know that kids with ADHD or individuals with ADHD, they actually are functioning 3 to 5 years behind their normal age peers.
mm,
Okay, so I already told you that the frontal lobe isn't fully developed until age 25, but depending on when the child sees me or has the diagnosis of ADHD, their development in the frontal lobe is behind their peers.
mm,
And so that's why it's frustrating, because parents are like, oh my gosh, he's 10 and he's acting more like 7, or,
mm,
whatever.
mm,
So, but for the ADHD brain, they struggle in organization, time management, prioritizing, and organizing things. And hence, it's why it's so important at an early age, if we can, to build structure, build routine through visual schedules and repetition. So that way it's just muscle memory.
mm,
And that's why habits are really important too. And to encourage our kids to do things like, when you come home after school, you need to have, this is what I teach, you have to have a snack because nobody likes hangriness. Then you need to also talk to your parent, check in with, your parent and say, hey, how are you? This is what my day was like, have that check in because it's super
mm,
important. Then you have to observe your homework planner or your homework folder, check your website for your school to see what assignments you have, and then plan how you're going to use that time after school before dinner with how to
mm.
manage your time. So that's like a framework that I teach. It's called STOP. And so that way kids can remember kind of that routine after school, routinely what to do. It's just the beginning phase, but it helps them understand, okay, I have to do this, 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 and this. Now you get into the nitty gritty of like, okay, then how do you take it, from the planning stage of getting your
Mm.
homework done and all that. But giving kids that framework, it just helps them learn how to sequence, how to prioritize, how to organize. And again, these are building executive function skills.
Mm.
So anytime you can build routine and structure, it feels better to the ADHD brain. Feels
Yeah.
better.
It feels better to my brain, to everybody's brain. It just
Yeah.
sounds so, because I'm like, oh, these are some things I could, because there's sometimes even at home where like, okay, what are you supposed to be doing? Uh, what am I supposed to be doing? Right. So I think that is incredible. And so you said stop. So S is snack. What's T?
Talk,
Checking with, I know you said
talk,
checking with
talk,
talk. I love
talk
it.
to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
um, observe. So
Hmm.
check what you have, in your
Yeah.
folder, your planner, your website, and then
Yeah.
plan.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That is incredible. Now, how do you adapt this for different age groups, right? You might have kids who are more like maybe preschool, kindergarten versus like more school age kids versus, middle school teens. How do you cover that across the age
Mm-hmm.
spectrum? And then how do you help parents support them without like, you know
Getting
what I mean, the badgering.
upset or frustrated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think in general, like thinking about your problem spots, your
Mm,
battlegrounds, your common battlegrounds, and
mm,
picking one, like what is the low-hanging fruit, the recurring problem that you want to kind of bite off first,
yeah.
and then think about ways to either prevent or in the moment diffuse,
Mm,
right? So this takes some strategy with the parent and then your therapist or your
yeah.
doctor just to kind of
Yeah.
see what's happening. You might need to explain like, well, gosh, every time he comes home or every time this happens, I start feeling upset.
Yeah.
And no matter what we do, right? So we have to kind of kind of deconstruct what's happening there and
Mm,
then meet kids where they are.
mm,
And that can be a little bit hard because again, like I said, when kids with ADHD, I mean, again, chronologically, they might be 7, but they might be
mm,
functioning more like a 4-year
yeah.
old. And again, sometimes we have to take a step back and remember that it's not that they're trying to specifically get under your skin or push your buttons. I
Mm,
really think that all kids truly want to do good and they
mm,
want to please you. It's
mm.
just that they're tired,
Yeah.
bored, hungry, all these
Mm,
different things you have to run through. But
mm,
then when you're trying to figure out how to set structure and routine, you need to first know where the problem spots are, where the
mm,
roadblocks, and then
mm.
kind of see. And again, I tell kids, no matter what their age, ADHD is not an excuse, it's an
Yeah.
explanation.
Mm,
But you can say things like, even to even a 4 or 5 year old, say, um, Johnny, I don't like when we are always arguing about this, and I keep asking, for, let's say putting your shoes and your coat in your cubby, and you just throw it on the floor. And it's just one more thing for me to do, but I also think it's something it's important that you can learn to help me,
mm,
so that, I need to see how you feel about it, right?
mm.
So it's more like kind of seeing where they are, like if they're open to that suggestion, do they even see that this is a problem?
Yeah.
First of all, do they even recognize that they're like, and why can't they stop their motor,
Mm,
after school? Like, is it because they're so hungry or they have to go to the restroom first? And so they just kind of dump it there,
mm,
without thinking. But, until you actually try to have a conversation with your child,
mm.
you know, sometimes we don't know. We assume,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you'll be surprised if you sit down with your child and say, "Look, this is a problem. What's getting in
Mm.
the way of us, figuring this out?" I bet two brains are better than one. We can figure this out,
Yeah. 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 No, I love that. I love how you talk about first finding what the roadblocks
Yeah.
are. I think that's really important. Where are we having issues? Because then this way, there may be things that may not necessarily rise to the top in order of priority when it
Hmm.
comes to tackling this. But if you're noticing, for instance, I'm going to bring this home, right? When we've been working our way to, to bedtime, right? We tend to be a struggle.
Yeah.
There's a lot of either pushback or stalling. I see that a lot. Or just long convoluted routines and kids running around and hyper and things like that. Sometimes if that's where you're noticing that that's where the frustration is, then maybe it makes sense to say, okay, you know what, let's try to deal with this piece, especially like you said, it impacts our sleep, impacts function, right? So even exactly like Dr. Ayo said, finding the root cause and the roadblocks is key. So true. So determining like, okay, this is where we need to start, and how do we then move forward,
Yeah.
realizing how important sleep is, because if we're struggling with that and we're not going to bed till 11 p.m. or something like that for a child that should have been asleep by
Or
9, like maybe
having
that's where we
frequent
need to.
night wakings too,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah,
disrupted
yeah,
sleep, and yeah, so
exactly.
it's so important.
So yeah, so how do we then say, for instance, address, like how can we come up with either practical ways to address those issues with delaying bedtime, bedtime stalling, and things like that? How do we adapt this sort of framework to making sure that kids are getting ready for bed in time?
Hmm.
And of course, big disclaimer, I'm a sleep doc. There are tons and tons of issues kids with ADHD have when it comes to sleep. But this is so fundamental
Hmm.
that, I feel like it's such a building block for us to then build up on, okay, what else could be going on and things like that. So talk to us a little bit about
Yeah,
that.
so I mean, I guess the first thing is obviously working closely with your child's doctor to make sure there's nothing
Mm,
else kind of underlying these
yeah.
problems, right? So let's say that we've ruled out kind of other stuff,
Mm,
and it's really just behavioral things, and knowing the child has ADHD. I mean, I think the first thing that's really important is creating that visual schedule. I'm not kidding.
mm,
Like, parents sometimes are like, but they should know these steps. And I'm like, I know they should know these steps. But it's also a combination of ADHD brains like to see the steps
mm-hmm,
and pairing it with something like this. It's a visual timer. Transitions are problematic for people with ADHD, especially if they are engaged in something they love and then they're asked to stop that and then go upstairs and start getting ready for bed. I mean, How many times have you heard that that's a problem, right? So,
Hmm.
so yes. So again, using like a countdown timer, like, when this goes, this is not red anymore. That's that, and you hear that little buzzer, it's going to be time to start our bedtime routine, or it's time to, go upstairs and take your shower, and then we're going to brush teeth, we're going to change to our pajamas, we're going to read a book, and then we're going to go to bed. But again, having those 5 steps as visuals,
Hmm.
this is not exactly, but this is what I mean by visuals, like this doesn't have to do with sleep, but like a
I
visual
love it.
of
Yes.
something,
Hmm.
because all you need to do is point to it and be like, oh, pajama, shower, so like having a
Hmm.
visual, it minimizes what you're saying to your child, because
Hmm.
sometimes too much talking can create friction, and parents
Yeah.
and kids get upset at each other,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes with ADHD, hearing it, and if their attention is not quite there, and then it goes out one in one ear out the other,
Hmm.
like you can always be like, hey, check out that visual. What else do you need to get done there? So it's like
Hmm.
another way to take in information, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's going to
Hmm.
be really important because time blindness and transitions are a problem with people
Yes.
with ADHD, pairing it
Hmm.
with that and a visual schedule, and then
Hmm.
reinforcing every step of the process. Like
Yeah.
even with just
Yeah.
praise, it's like, oh my goodness, like you've got 4 steps
Yeah.
done. What else do we have to do, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
doing it with the child. Again, I'm talking more for the younger kids, but then as
Hmm.
older kids, as they get older, you can just kind of make sure that they're on track.
Hmm.
Just kind of poke your head in. How's things going?
Hmm.
Especially if you're concerned that, your daughter's taking an hour long for showers and, like all
Yeah.
these different things. So there's
Yeah.
different ways of involvement, but parents should
Hmm.
still be
Hmm.
involved in some way, shape, or form. Like my
Hmm.
my my kids are 16 and 13,
Yeah.
and I need to make sure that they start it, and then I don't need to necessarily follow, but by
Hmm.
a certain time I know that they'll be done, and I look upstairs and make sure the lights are off and all that. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm still somewhat involved. It's
Yeah.
just not as like managing it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there's a question here. Thank you for this question. Can you use visuals for older kids?
Yes, you can. You
Mm-hmm.
can. And
Mm-hmm.
again, remember, people with ADHD, they're functioning at a little bit lower
Mm.
um, age. And again, when I say that, please don't take it as they're not smart. That has nothing
Mm.
to do with it. It's just that, our brains are just visual. We think in pictures, and it just is so
Mm.
helpful.
Yeah.
So, or even a checklist, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Um, One of my friends, and I don't have them with me, but actually, no, I don't have it right here. But there are these wrist flips
Oh
that
yeah.
there
Mm-hmm.
it's like a visual schedule on your wrist,
Yeah.
and then as you flip it over, it's like a reminder, like, oh, I have to
Mm.
brush my teeth. Oh, I have to do this. And then as
Yeah.
you do it, you just flip it over and it says magnificent, or like,
Yes.
well
That's so cool.
done.
I
So
know.
it's another way of promoting autonomy, which
Yeah.
parents love, especially
Yeah.
as kids get older.
Yeah.
But yes, you can use visuals and checklists and all that. I,
Absolutely. I
I
love it.
need
So
I need checklists. Like, how many of you still like
I
write on Post-it
know.
notes?
Exact
I
all over, all over. If I turn my camera around,
I
it's a
know.
thing.
Yes.
But you know what? What I'm hearing is this: routines are important even during the day, right? When they get back from school, that's helpful.
Yep.
Routines are so important at bedtime when it comes to our sleep. It helps, and studies have shown it decreases the time to sleep onset. It helps us with, just overall improving our sleep efficiency. Now, of course, this is the caveat. If your child has a sleep issue, make sure that you're seeing a sleep expert like
Hmm.
myself, or even, speaking with Dr. Bauer as well, because some of these things may be a reflection that there's an underlying sleep problem. If there's sleep apnea, restless leg
Yes.
syndrome, or there's so many things, or insomnia, even in children with
Hmm.
ADHD. So those
Or
are things
and
that,
anxiety too,
yes,
and ADHD and
exactly.
anxiety run hand in
They
hand. So
do.
sometimes it's fears
Yeah.
and curtain calls and
Yep.
all those
Yep.
different things. So,
Yep. So again, I think it goes back to identifying what the root cause is. So this is more of like, let's even get the basics right. And number one is, yes, you absolutely need to have a bedtime routine. So maybe starting from saying, okay, what are the 3 or 4 things? We don't make it too complicated. We don't make it
Yeah.
convoluted. They don't go upstairs, downstairs, around, all around the garden, right? No, 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 no. They start to get this routine, 2 or 3 activities, heading in the direction of the bedroom and using some kind of visual cues. I love that. There are many online. I
Mhm.
probably should create one for my of
You
my own,
should.
but you can, because it's literally, some of them are pictorial, and
Hmm.
so for the younger kids, and some of them actually have checks. You could actually get like you could put a check right next, like I brushed my teeth, check. I change into my PJs, check, read a book, and so they know what to
Yep.
expect. And as their brains need that predictability, their body is also being cued for sleep. So
Yes.
this is really healthy all round.
So in our last few
Yeah.
minutes, can I just talk about what I needed to do for my sleep since you have been
Yes.
like my my
Yeah,
inspiration and
absolutely.
because as you know, people with ADHD, we just have it's hard to sleep,
Yeah.
and it's a
Mm,
common issue, sometimes parents feel that when we start medication, the medication
yeah.
causes problems, but if you and yes, it can, but if
Mm,
you look back even before starting medications, a lot of these kids with ADHD just struggle with sleep
yeah.
in general. So
Yeah.
but one of the things as an adult with ADHD that has really helped me, and again, going back to the fundamentals, after I got my diagnosis, I knew sleep was one of the things I had to work on. I was
Mm,
chronically staying up at 1, 2 in the morning, sending
mm,
emails, just not sleeping, tossing and turning, and running on 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep,
mm,
which is no good for anybody.
mm, mm,
Um, and and so a few things had to happen for me, and it's still a work in progress, but I am so much better now at the beginning of the year.
mm,
Um, Several things had to happen. One is that I had to start doing my physical activity again during the
mm,
day. I
mm,
mean, I fell off the wagon for over a year, and I passed off like sometimes walking my dogs as exercise or, but
mm,
I really had to start doing something on a consistent basis. So for me, it's Pilates and some weight training. So that's great that I started, and I had to schedule that. Again, we were talking about consistency and routine for
mm,
adults with ADHD, scheduling things like that on your calendar, super uber
mm,
important. So that's one. Number two is I had to put boundaries in place. I, like you, as physicians and professional women, we want to kind of get things off our plate. We have to-do lists out, this long, and we're
mm,
managing kids and family. But for me, it meant turning off my computer and being okay with it by 9 o'clock, and sometimes earlier if I can do that. And because sometimes I would stay up and check and work on notes or, check email messages until 10, 11, 12, and then expecting to close it and then be able to sleep. No way.
mm,
No. So I had to start putting a boundary that at 8, 8:30, whatever, those notes can wait till tomorrow, and just turn off access to screens like that. And then hydrating all the time, and then just kind of being very mindful that these things had to be in place. And then as I just started trying to beat the clock, I feel like so happy when I get into bed before 10. Um, that it just like all those things coincided to now
yeah.
it's like these are things I need to do, you know?
Mm, mm, mm. You know how proud I am of just your journey, right? We've been at this for a minute, and just about how intentional you've been and finding what works for you. And I think that's the other piece. Like a lot of what you just talked about, the physical activity, the boundaries, the hydration, taking care of your body, and just even the act of mindfulness and being aware and setting an intention. Like this is everything I teach my clients. But the
Hmm.
beautiful thing about it is it may not be one size fits all, right? For some people, it may be a little bit of something else than the other, but the important thing is to start with an intention to say, you know what, I need things to get better. I need to prioritize my sleep because I've been on the other end where I have been sleep deprived and it doesn't look good. And so just seeing how you have slowly but surely and consistently chipped at it. And I love when you send those texts and say, yes, I got into bed. I'm like,
I know.
yes, this
I
stuff
know. It's like
works.
a game. It's like I gotta beat the clock. I gotta be in bed before 10. I mean, I don't have to be sleeping,
Yeah,
but I need
yeah,
to be like ready
yeah,
for bed and in
yeah,
bed.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, so proud of you. This is amazing. So, final words, where can we find you? What are you up to? We didn't even get to talk about your course, so maybe just tell us a little bit about this stuff because I can tell you there are people who are out there and are like, oh my gosh, this is what I needed. Right,
Yeah.
either from people who are like, I don't even know if my kid has ADHD, all the way to, well, we've tried everything and we're not even sure where else to go from here.
Yeah. Well, so you can find everything about me, my courses, my YouTube channel, my private practice in Indiana at letstalkkidshealth.org. And there's just different like tabs there for all of those things. So I have a private practice, direct specialty care practice, 2.5 days a week in Indiana. So unfortunately, if you're not in Indiana, I cannot see you as a one-on-one client like that because I'm
Mm.
licensed in Indiana. However, I do a lot of education for families. So one of my signature courses called Teach Me ADHD. It's a class that kids and parents take together, and it's suitable for kids ages 8 to 12. And what I love about it is that kids and parents take it together. It's on Zoom, but you take it with up to 11 other families. So other kids get to see other kids just like them, and parents get to see other parents, and it's a community. So we're
Mm.
doing a lot of learning, and we talk about everything ADHD over 8 weeks. You become detectives. It's the All Needs Help Detective Agency that supply boxes and everything that you need, like visual aids and all of that. For instance, activity tracker. We give kids these types of visuals because again, ADHD brains like it, and then it's laminated so you can reuse it and we teach and help kids become autonomous and why it's important to monitor activity, monitor your mood, monitor your medicine,
Mm.
right? Um, but there's family missions that parents and kids complete every week so that they can build their systems in place and build those habits, right? And then I also have a monthly membership with a private podcast for families. I bring in excellent people such as yourself, Dr. Brown, to talk with families in a more intimate way, to get questions answered, to start like kind of going a little bit deeper in those specialized topics too. So it's a lot of fun. And I've had over almost, I think, 100 families now from
Wow.
16 to 18 different states since I've started this class. So it's a lot of fun for me. And please check it out. If you have any questions, just reach out and let me know.
Love, love it. And I've had the privilege of just serving in your community, and it's just incredible. The families love the work you do, and they are so intentional about just really thriving in spite of the ADHD, thriving with ADHD, right?
Yes.
So it's beautiful to see. And I hope this has really been incredible. I knew it was going to be good, but you know what? Like, of course, I know we need a part 3 and 4 and whatever, but it's, and thanks for sharing your story. And so you heard her. I'm going to put all the links on there. And if you do have a kid with ADHD, a child with ADHD, or you're a mom who's struggling with your executive function and sleep seems to be an issue, just reach out. Feel free to reach out to me at restfulsleepmd.com, and let's work on this together, because now you can see a real living testimonial with Dr. Neri Sabar and how she intentionally improved our sleep. And I'm just so, so excited to watch and be a part of that journey. Thank you
Yes.
so much for being here.
Thank you, friend. As always, it's a pleasure
I
talking with
know,
you.
I
So,
know, I know. And bye, everyone. I hope you all have a good night, okay?
bye.
Bye.